And Amorim is having to manage his 22 outfield players across those 55 games. Now, that's part of the equation, which is it's the job of the manager to manage his squad and to speak to the boardroom. And we'll come on to that in a moment in terms of what the numbers are. To speak with the boardroom about what the club's priorities are, about, because that's the job of a manager, is to manage. It's not just to be some sort of armchair pundit sort of sounding off. He has to manage lots of different matters, upwards, downwards, sideways, and all this type of stuff. So effectively, the decision that he has made is that, and clearly it's maybe a decision made in conjunction with the boardroom, is that it is Man United's priority this season to win the Europa Cup, because they are in no position to qualify for any European competition if they don't do so, right? Now, let's just have a look at the financial implications of that, because it's not clear-cut, but a decision has clearly been made, and a decision I do respect from a boardroom perspective. Each Premier League place is worth £3 million, right? So the difference between Man United finishing 17th and 7th is 30 million quid. Right. So that's the delta that we're dealing with now. They were never going to get into the top 6 this season, but if after Amorim came to the club, they'd gone on a half-decent run, they probably could have picked up 7th or 8th, and they could end up getting £30 million more in prize money than they would do if they finished 17th, which looks reasonably likely at this particular point in time. You've then got the Champions League for next season, which if they qualified for it and qualified from the group stages into the knockouts, would be worth about 60 million, that kind of thing. They've also then got a penalty clause in their kit deal, which says if they don't qualify for the Champions League, it's 10 million, right? So it's a 70 million quid thing for United this season to go into the Champions League next season. Let's also think about recruitment this summer. It's well publicised that Man United yet again need to reboot their squad. They will be able to attract better players, and sometimes for less, if they are in the Champions League next year, because the very top elite players want to play in the Champions League to keep their own stock high. Whereas if you're not in Europe and you're trying to attract the very best players, you have to pay them more because you're not playing in the Champions League. So let's say that adds an extra 10, 20 million quid onto it. And we're looking at about sort of, let's say, an impact of 90 million, because you've also got to say other commercial deals, all sorts of things, merchandise that go with being in the Champions League. So if they go into the Europa Cup final with a fully fit squad, which is the optimum of what they can possibly put on the pitch, they're gunning for 90 million and giving up around about 30 million of prize money in the Premier League, potentially, if you assumed that these weakened teams are going to be the thing that makes the big difference, etc., etc. So that's the financial side of it. The other side of it, the sporting side of it, that people like Keane haven't caught up with, is that the game has changed since he played. The distance coverage, i.e. the amount of physical output expected of players now compared to 20 years ago, is around about 20% higher. And that is pushing players constantly into what is known in football as the red zone, i.e. where they are playing at risk of injury. And that is a determination made by the performance department, who will see during their physical testing during the week where they are in their physical cycle, where their muscles, their tendons, their reaction times are. And they're constantly treading that line with the performance department telling the manager, if you play this player for the next 2 games, there is a high chance that he will have a soft tissue injury of some kind or another, whatever it might be, right? So you've got a 55-game season being played in most cases around about the red zone, right? And then you've got the financial differentials as well. So if you take all of that in the round, I think it is not unreasonable for Man United to have a very large, very well-paid squad, including the back end of that squad, to say to their players number 12 through to 22, whatever it is, right, guys, you need to help us out here. You need to get out there on the pitch and actually earn your money rather than sitting on the bench or sitting in the stand. You need to go and win some games for us, because there are 4 or 5 players here who are in the red zone who we need for that Europa final, which is a financially defining moment for the club and for our ability to recruit this summer.